Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Joe here from Spain Speaks with a Spain news update. And the Spanish government has sent 2 warships to the Black Sea, and let's just say that coalition partner Podemos is not happy. But more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation or by buying me a beer or a coffee. Many thanks for that. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your ongoing support. Now, let's get into the news, and as I said, the big news in Spain here currently is that the government has decided to send 2 warships to the Black Sea. As we can see here, Spain sends 2 ships and considers deploying fighter jets with NATO in the Black Sea in the midst of Ukraine crisis. Spain has already sent a warship to the Black Sea and will send another in coming days in the midst of escalating tension between the United States and NATO on the one hand and Russia on the other over the crisis in Ukraine. This was explained this Thursday by the Minister of Defense, Margarita Robles. The minesweeper Meteoro left Las Palmas de Gran Canaria 2 days ago, and in 3 or 4 days, according to Robles, the frigate Blas de Lezo will follow suit. Both will take part in the NATO mission in the region. Spain participates in all NATO deployments, and in this specific case, the frigate has been brought forward in line with the agreement, the minister added. So 1 warship already sent to the area and another one leaving in coming days. However, as I mentioned earlier, coalition partner Podemos is not happy about this deployment. And as we can see from this headline, Podemos attacks Spain's military involvement in the Ukraine crisis. We reject the sending of ships and fighter jets, they say. Podemos has taken advantage of the crisis in Ukraine to open another rift in the government. Both party spokespersons and some members of the coalition government have lashed out on Thursday against Pedro Sanchez's decision to mobilize troops in the face of the Russian threat in the east. Late on Thursday, the party issued a statement in which it expressed its rejection in the increase in troop movements and the sending of ships and fighters to the area. As has been the norm in recent government crises, it has been the former Vice President Pablo Iglesias who has led the criticism against the socialist wing of the government. In a message on Twitter, he warned Sanchez that the pro-US furore ended with Aznar. So there we go, coalition partner Podemos not happy with the government's involvement in this Ukraine crisis. And good to see former Podemos leader Pablo Iglesias still active on Twitter. Now, European aid money is making headlines again today, and the government apparently has admitted that it doesn't know if this money is reaching companies. As we can see from this headline in El Mundo, the government admits that it does not know how much of the European funds have reached companies so far. The government says it does not know what percentage of the expenditure it has authorised in 2021 from European funds from the Recovery and Resilience Mechanism has actually reached the economy. Key information to know how the execution is evolving and which it hopes to have from April thanks to an IT tool it is working on, according to government sources reported on Thursday. Spain has at its disposal a volume of 140 billion euros from the European Union's Next Generation programme, of which 71.6 billion is received as transfers through 2 mechanisms. 59.168 billion in the framework of the Recovery and Resilience Mechanism in exchange for carrying out reforms and investments, and 12.436 billion from the EU REACT. So money from Europe flowing into the economy here in Spain, but the government doesn't know where it's going or who's getting it, according to that article. But don't worry, because the app to track the money will be ready in April. Now, COVID transmission here in Spain continues to fall, in fact 3 days in a row now with falling numbers. And as a result, Spain's regions are considering lifting restrictions. The 6th wave of the coronavirus in Spain is starting to slow. On Wednesday, the Spanish Health Ministry reported that the 14-day incidence rate had fallen 20 points to 3,286 cases per 100,000. This is the 2nd day in a row that the data point has dropped after 2 months on the rise. Experts, however, warn that it is too soon to speak of a downward trend, explaining that more time must pass for the decline to be confirmed. But while transmission remains at very high levels, the 6th wave is showing the first signs that the rise in cases is slowing down. So some good news finally as far as COVID-19 transmission with the Omicron variant is concerned. With some autonomous communities here in Spain, for example Cantabria, Catalonia and Andalusia, talking about lifting restrictions, for example COVID passports or other restrictions on nightlife. So some good news here in Spain, but in another European country, Austria, there's some bad news for the unvaccinated, and it is that Austria will become the first EU country to impose compulsory COVID vaccination for adults. Austria's parliament on Thursday passed the first law in the European Union requiring Austrian residents over the age of 18 to be vaccinated against COVID-19 from the 1st of February. Fines of up to €3,600 can be imposed for ignoring the law, which has broad political backing but has provoked polarization on the streets. Hundreds of people demonstrated in central Vienna, watched by a heavy police presence that blocked access to the Hofburg, the former imperial palace that houses the seat of government and parliament. The law has been backed by 137 of the 170 MPs who took part in the vote in parliament out of 183 seats, where only the ultranationalist anti-vaccine FPO party opposed it en bloc. So a majority of the Austrian parliament voting for mandatory COVID vaccines there for people over the age of 18. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation here in Spain, and we can see that accumulated incidence rate sitting at 3,279. Hospital plant pressure remains very high at 15.2%, with 18,934 COVID patients hospitalised around the country, and ICU pressure remains high at 23.3%, with 2,204 COVID patients in ICU. And there were 162 COVID-related deaths reported yesterday by the government. Now, the tourism sector here in Spain is again celebrating, with Boris Johnson's decision yesterday to remove remaining restrictions in the UK. And as we can see here, contained euphoria in Spanish tourism over Boris Johnson's opening in the UK. Boris Johnson's government's decision to lift from next week the restrictions imposed to contain the spread of the Omicron variant of COVID has sparked contained euphoria in the Spanish destinations that received most British tourists. The relaxation of controls reached the first milestone last Wednesday when quarantines for entry into the country and the obligation to undergo a PCR were eliminated, a circumstance that for tourists with lower purchasing power meant an added economic barrier to the already complicated decision to travel abroad. The United Kingdom will eliminate the obligation to wear a mask, to show a COVID certificate, or force teleworking if the job allows it. The message conveyed by the Conservative government, whose Prime Minister is under a political storm due to his Downing Street parties in the midst of a wave of restrictions, is that the pandemic is coming to an end, at least in the medium term, a circumstance that for the Spanish tourism sector, which is currently exploring relations with wholesalers at its most important trade fair, Fitur, believes could translate into an exhibition of trips abroad by a population that has been limiting its travel for almost 2 years. So some good news there for the Spanish tourism sector, with Boris Johnson lifting restrictions. So a smart decision from Johnson, or a way to get the media off his back for those illegal parties in 2020? I'll let you guys decide. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Donald: great to see a government supporting young people with housing costs. Wish this could happen in the UK, but it will never happen with this Tory government. Yeah, Donald, thanks for the comment, and referring to an article that we saw the other day about how the Spanish government has found the funds to subsidise young people who want to break ties with the family home and rent an apartment. A subsidy of €250 available for people between the ages of 18 and 35 who meet the criteria. As we know, for young people here in Spain, it's not easy to leave the family home to emancipate, either because it's too expensive, rents are too high, or because sometimes people just don't want to do it because they're too comfortable at home. And the government here has decided that it's a good idea to take taxpayer money, give it to young people, and help them pay the rent. Critics of the plan say that it is a short-term solution to a long-term problem that is not easy to fix. But with everything, time will tell if it is a good plan or not. One here from Richard: oldest Jew back in Melbourne after 3 weeks in Puerto Banús, Marbella and Malaga City. Being an Aussie, I printed my International Australian COVID certificate before I left and had it as a folded up piece of paper in my pocket. Some restaurants needed to see this, and the paper vaccine certificate with the QR code on it was sufficient. Had no problems using this out and about. I wish I was back in Spain. The wife is already checking tickets for August. LOL. Yeah, Richard, thanks for the comment, and good to see that you had a good time down there in Malaga, and also that your Aussie COVID certificate didn't give you any dramas when it came to entering bars and restaurants to get something to eat and drink. And I'm happy to see that you were able to make it back to Melbourne and that you were able to travel to Spain in the first place, because yesterday WA Premier Mark McGowan said that Fortress WA is staying shut indefinitely. So it looks as though the plans I had to travel back to WA this year have been shot again. One here from Bob. We live in Sitges part-time and do not have an EU vaccination passport, but we have our US certificates and our shots. This works fine when we go to restaurants in Sitges and Barcelona. Yeah, Bob, thanks for the comment and thanks for the input on the validity of non-EU COVID passports here in Spain. We just saw that comment from Richard saying that his Aussie COVID certificate gave him no problems in Malaga, and you there in Sitges, Catalonia, saying that also no problems. Somebody in the comment section the other day said that they did have a problem with a non-EU COVID certificate. I think it was from the United States. So not sure what the problem was with that particular certificate, but if you're not having problems with yours, then they must be valid. One here from Dunk Yo. Disagree, Stuart, with the bit about not knowing your neighbours in Spain. For us, that's more like living back in the UK. We can't move here in the Granada region without everyone wanting to know how you're doing and what you're up to. Yeah, Dunk, thanks for the comment, and obviously you've got some friendly or nosy neighbours down there in Granada that want to know everything that you're doing. Here where I live, on the outskirts of Madrid, as I said yesterday, it's the complete opposite. In fact, I can't remember the last time somebody asked me where I was from or what I'm doing here in Spain. But I guess that's got to do with the anonymity of living in a big city. One here from Thomas. Is the €250 per month available to all Europeans aged 18 to 35? Or just to Spaniards? Yeah, Thomas, thanks for the comment and the question, and the answer is fairly simple. As we can see here, young people between the ages of 18 and 35 who are Spanish, European, including Switzerland, or third country nationals legally resident in Spain will be entitled to receive a subsidy of €250 per month for 2 years. So there we go, Spaniards, Europeans, third country nationals who reside legally in Spain are entitled to this subsidy as long as they meet the conditions. One here from Bag of Bones. Hello, Stu. You look like you would fit in with the natives. I know that the northern Spaniards are fairer. Do you get surprised looks when they realise you're not native? My grandfather was from Leon and he was always saying that he was of Visigoth stock, and my nan was Galician and her family could be Irish based on looks. Superficial, I know, but that's the way of the world and has always been. Yeah, Bag of Bones, thanks for the comment, and you're right, in the north of the country you can find people with fairer skin, fairer hair, but in my particular case I would say that 95% of the population here know that I'm a giddy as soon as they lay eyes on me. Because let's be honest, this skin is more suited to the Scottish Highlands than it is here in Spain. And finally, one here from Paco. Did you sell the Subaru, Stu? Yeah, Paco, thanks for the comment, and the answer is no, I have not sold the Subaru. It's sitting outside at the moment, but it will be going on the market shortly. So if anybody's interested, give me a bell. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.